Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have full review of the Honor 90. Let's get started. This device is part of the premium mid-range of this manufacturer and offers two alternatives, one with 256 gigabytes of storage and another with 512 gigabytes. So the proposal is very attractive in this sense, although obviously like any device it will have some other points a little bit weaker. The launch price of the most basic unit in Mexico is 11,999 pesos, about $689 more or less. The most expensive unit goes up to 15,999 pesos. Again, on screen you see reference price in dollars, but remember that prices here are not the same as over there. In Mexico, the distribution is very wide since it has distribution in telephone companies and also with other department stores in addition to the direct store of Honor. But buying it directly with Honor also gives you other benefits such as an Honor Watch 4, extended warranty for 2 years and screen insurance for 6 months, so I think it's highly recommended to buy it directly from the Honor store. But there are also likely to be discounts and other cool stuff later on. Then join me to know what it can offer us to fight head-to-head against their opponents. The design is one of the most attractive points, especially for the front that comes with extremely thin bezels, but that's not the only attractive thing as it also has a screen with 4 curves. Usually curved screens come only with curved sides, but in this case also the bottom and top come with this type of design. So it reflects in a very attractive way the lighting, giving a feeling of a completely borderless screen. The truth is that this will be its most relevant aspect, but it is also a screen that comes protected with Honor Shield glass. A pretty hard glass that actually has very good resistance, but what do you think if we do a drop test? In this case, the only thing that came off was a little bit of the glass, but the screen survived perfectly well. In fact, I had already dropped it 2 or 3 other times, even from a higher height, accidentally, and it had survived well. So there is no doubt that the front is a very strong point because it not only has a very good aesthetic but also a very good resistance. On the right side we have the power button and volume buttons. On the top side there is only a microphone, and we have a completely clean left side, but it serves to appreciate its thickness of 7.8 millimeters and also remind you that the frame is plastic with metallic look. At the bottom is the tray. If you buy it with a phone company, the slot for the second nano SIM card will be blocked, but it is possible to purchase this dual SIM edition. A microphone, USB-C port and the speaker are also located down here. The back cover is made of a brushed glass that is very pleasant both to the touch and to the eye. And this finish also prevents fingerprints from marking too much. So it really is a very attractive design as it is able to reflect light but does not reflect the image, giving a very premium aesthetic. This edition that I got my hands on is emerald green, but it is also available in an edition called Royal Sapphire. Honor claims that this whole design is inspired by high-fashion jewelry, as also the camera module has a rather curious design with respect to the ring that surrounds it, with a width that is varying, although in this case the back cover does not include some special resistance like Honor Shield glass or something like that, so let's say it's a bit of a delicate design on the back. The most advisable is to use it with a case to prevent it from breaking in a fall. The weight of this device is 183 grams, so it is very comfortable to hold in your hand, not only because it does not weigh too much, but also because of the curved lines around it. The bad news is that it does not have water resistance, and at this price point there are already several devices that are starting to integrate that feature. The screen is 6.7 inches in diagonal and it really is a very good quality panel. It offers us AMOLED technology, and so we have intense colors and very high contrast plus good viewing angles. So it is a screen that everywhere you look it will be very good. Its resolution is slightly beyond Full HD+. To be exact, it is 1200 by 2664 pixels. So we have an excellent level of detail. It also has a very high brightness, as when displaying HDR content it can reach a peak of 1600 nits. It is therefore compatible with 10 plus HDR content, confirming that we are in front of a very good screen for multimedia consumption, whether you want to watch movies, series, creators on YouTube and more. In fact, you will also notice that the content captured with this device has some areas that project more lighting to give more realism to all this, so the experience is very good. It is also probably the most advanced screen in the industry today with respect to avoiding fatigue, as it not only has the visual rest modes that we usually see daily in smartphones, but also has a mode that will automatically adapt throughout the day the temperature of the screen. But above all, the most remarkable thing is the attenuation that can reach up to 3840 Hz. That is not so easy to demonstrate through the camera. In fact, it is not even something so noticeable to the naked eye, but it will cause your eyesight to be much less fatigued, especially when you are using the device with a low brightness. By lowering the camera shutter speed somewhat, I can try to show this in camera. Notice how on the iPhone these lines are much more pronounced, while on the Honor device you can barely see them for a moment. This in practice will cause much less eye strain when you are using the Honor device. In the settings, we will also find two color calibrations in case we want more natural and less saturated colors. Finally, it also has a refresh rate of up to 120 Hz, although it dynamically adjusts to have 60 Hz when you are displaying static content, so it doesn't consume as much battery. It's not capable of adjusting up to 10 or 1 Hz like high-end devices, but it really is a good quality display. Another small detail where it could be improved is that it doesn't have a natural tone feature that allows you to match the ambient white color for a more natural view. Finally, in the purest style of televisions, it brings a video enhancer that will allow us to improve through artificial intelligence the contents we are playing to raise the saturation, contrast, and more. And several applications are supported. The sound is probably the weakest point of this device, as it only has a speaker at the bottom. That makes it only capable of playing mono sound, which is unacceptable in this price range. Virtually all of its competitors will have 2 speakers. Fortunately, it sounds very loud and with a good presence of bass frequencies, but the fact that it only has 1 speaker makes it one of the worst sound experiences in this price range because it is not able to give you an immersive sound experience. But let's listen to a little test, though remember, it's not the same listening to it live. But the sound experience is not only improvable in terms of hardware, but also in terms of software, as it doesn't include too much configuration. There are Honor high-stand sound effects, but they will only be enabled when headphones are connected, and only with this accessory connected it gives us access to some surround sound style effects, or in the standard setting it gives us access to a 10-band equalizer with a bass amplifier included. But we can't modify the sound style if we don't have headphones connected, and that makes the experience much simpler and easier compared to other devices. Also, it doesn't integrate headphone jack, so you will have to use headphones with USB-C port if you want to enjoy these Honor high-stand settings, as Bluetooth headphones are not compatible with this section. And speaking of which, the good news is that it does support good codecs for wireless sound playback, as it supports SBC, AAC, aptX, and LDAC. That means that if you buy headphones compatible with these codecs, you will be able to enjoy high-resolution audio without the need for cables. Below you will hear an audio test recorded with the microphones of this device.
Esta es una grabación realizada con Honor 90 y sus 2 micrófonos que tiene incorporados. Sí soporta grabación estéreo.
Fortunately, it does have 2 microphones and therefore does support stereo recording, although that was the least we could ask for at this price. The front camera is 50 megapixels, a fairly high resolution that is uncommon to see in devices. In addition, it has f2.4 aperture and fixed focus. The aperture is not that attractive, however, it is an extremely wide lens that you can enjoy for group shots. The experience will be very good, and that's why it offers us 2 levels of width to adjust the framing. The capture speed is also considerably good, and if we hold down the shutter we don't have access to any burst. At the top we will find a button to access some filters that do not have a real-time view of all of them enabled. The good news is that they do have intelligent capture, both showing the palm and by smiles. That makes things much easier when it is difficult to reach the shutter, and the truth is that it works very well. Within the portrait mode, we will have the beauty options, and if it allows you to disable the bokeh effect, here we will find 3 categories. The first to unify the tone, another to refine the face, and finally another to select the skin tone. The front camera of this device does have a high resolution mode to take advantage of all the information of this sensor, and it is really impressive the level of detail that we can reach. Although in automatic mode the photos are 12 megapixels, but I insist that through the high resolution mode you can access this format of 50 megapixels. Outdoors, these photos will look of good quality. Undoubtedly, the fact of having this fusion of pixels allows you to have a very good balance of lights in addition to this excellent level of detail. Because despite having 12 megapixel photos, we will actually have much more detailed photos than what we usually find in other smartphones. It has fixed focus, which I consider to be a weak point, although in general, no matter if you are near or far from the camera, it seems to me that you always have a good level of detail. The only flaw we could find in this camera would be that being such a wide lens, the edges could come out of focus and with a bit of chromatic aberration. But honestly, I like that it is such a wide camera, especially for group shots or also for video recording. Indoors, the quality of photography is still very good, especially the good intensity of the colors, although in these conditions we do not have as much detail as if we saw it outdoors, but I like that we do not see any noise even in areas that are a little darker, and especially the very good color capture we have. And for backlight in this case, we did the test indoors. Obviously you notice that the preview is not optimized yet. But after taking the picture, I think the result is completely positive, although the ideal is to leave the device as stable as possible to avoid such effects as duplicates or ghosts, as it is a long exposure. But note how it managed to optimize in a better way the most illuminated areas to have a good capture of the illumination. And at night, in areas where there is not so much illumination, we still have a good result with respect to light and color, although the level of detail is considerably low compared to what we saw in the day, but the result, I insist, is very good. You can use the screen as a flash simulation to improve detail capture and even color. And if you combine that with the night mode, even in backlit night conditions, you will have excellent results. The truth is that this situation was very complicated because in the background we had too many light sources, but the photography does seem to me to be of a very good level. If we are in a night environment with a little more artificial lighting, I think the result will be of good quality, maintaining good colors and a sufficiently high level of detail. You can also take portrait shots to generate a bokeh effect in the background, and at night I think it doesn't have as much detail. But in the daytime you will have a higher level of detail, although we are going to point out in this case that it is not able to keep the objects in focus and therefore the pictures might not come out very natural. But if you do not have an object nearby, I think the results will be completely positive. On the back we have the 200 megapixel main camera, and its lens is about 24mm with f1.9 aperture and autofocus. Then we will have an ultra-wide camera with 12 megapixels on its sensor, and its lens is about 14mm with f2.2 aperture, and it also has autofocus so it can be used for macro shots. Finally, the third camera is simply for capturing depth, so the only information we have about it is that it is 2 megapixels with f2.4 aperture and fixed focus. We're going to do the test to try to capture the exact moment, and it seems to have a buffer that makes the capture even a little bit before we press the button. So the capture is quite agile, and if we hold down the shutter we can have a burst of many pictures, only it takes a long time to start. But note how it would allow us to choose the exact moment of what we want to capture, although it does take about a second to react to start capturing. The device has artificial intelligence to help you optimize colors, but if you want more natural colors, you can perfectly disable this option. It also has the same filter selector that we saw on the front camera, and if we press on the screen we can adjust the focus and exposure, but it also has a much more advanced professional mode where you can take pictures not only in JPG but also in RAW to develop them later. And it has parameters such as metering type, ISO that can go up to 6400, shutter speed that can go up to 30 seconds, exposure compensation, focus and white balance. In addition, these manual settings can also be used with the ultra-wide camera. In automatic mode, it is not able to detect the documents, but if it suggests you to access the document mode, and from this section perfectly can do the cropping. But it also optimizes the color to enhance the details of this scan. In fact, it has multiple color settings for you to select the one you like the most, and finally you can export the content as a PDF document directly. And it is not possible to scan QR codes from the main interface, but you can access AI Lens through the button in the upper left corner, and here you can perform this type of actions. Motion captures are nothing complicated for this device. So even though it's an action-packed scene, you're not going to get any weirdly shaky photos. The 200 megapixel photo mode is going to allow you to take advantage of all the detail that we have here very well. I want you to notice how even this sign that's super far away, it comes out sharp enough to understand what it's saying. So it's actually really nice, this 200 megapixel mode, which can be useful for reframing your pictures without losing detail or extracting pictures from your pictures. It's a feature that honestly you're not going to use every day, but when you need it, it will be there. With auto mode, the pictures will be 12 megapixels, and outdoors I think the colors are fine, slightly more saturated than natural, but I think it's still a good picture and you don't notice any kind of issues with the lens, so it's a good quality lens that doesn't generate chromatic aberration, at least not the noticeable kind in this photograph, nor any distortion. On the other hand, the ultra-wide camera will generate a little more distortion in the edges above all, although within the range we could say that it is normal, since even in much more expensive devices it is also normal to see some distortions and chromatic aberration. Here the good news is that it does maintain a very similar color rendition to the main camera. In backlit scenes, the preview does not look well optimized. But after taking the picture, I think the result is positive. Consider that this scene was quite complicated and the foreground that was in the shadows comes out with good lighting. Although we could still notice some slightly overexposed areas and maybe the color accuracy is not the best, but I think in the range it takes good pictures against the backlight. Indoors, the camera will perform spectacularly by very good color capture, maintaining good detail and reducing noise very well. So even in conditions where there is not so much lighting, we have a good result. The ultra-wide camera also has an excellent performance in this type of conditions, although it doesn't have as much detail, but it does maintain good color capture, good noise treatment, and of course, it offers us much greater amplitude. At night, it also has excellent light capture, although the colors may not be as accurate. But it really is an excellent photograph for this price range, giving us a good feeling because we don't see noise in the darker areas and we see good detail in the rest of the areas. And using the night mode, the result is very similar to what we have with the automatic mode. So, honestly, that's good news for the automatic mode because you don't need so many settings to get a good picture. Although within the night mode you are going to have a bit more detail, especially in the darker areas and textures, and the ultra-wide camera has less lighting input, but I think it still manages to have a good result. Again, here the drawback could be the color accuracy because you see slightly more reddish colors compared to what we had on the main camera, although a much more accurate green color compared to the main camera. And with the night mode, with the ultra-wide camera, we have a better capture of the illumination of the dark areas. So I think this device is really going to give you very good night photography without the need for night mode because of the pixel fusion that it does with that 200 megapixel sensor. And another way to take advantage of this 200 megapixel sensor is in the zoom, because we have here the 1x photography, but it allows us a 2x photography practically without loss. So we have a quality that we could consider optical without the need for a telephoto lens. So we have a good 12 megapixel photograph with 2x digital zoom. Now you're looking at a 5x digital zoom photograph, and from my point of view, it still has a very good level of detail. And the maximum is 10x digital. And I insist, I think it makes very good use of the information from that 200 megapixel sensor. Although I can't say it's the best zoom in the range because there are other devices in this price range that will include a specific telephoto lens for zoom shots, but in this case, only from the main camera alone, it tries to optimize everything with the best level of detail from the sensor. The device also features a high-resolution panoramic photography mode, so you can take advantage of it for large photos and practically no noticeable gaps where one photo and another are merged. So we have a totally good result, and even with a good dynamic range and good colors, the main camera of this device cannot focus so close to these small objects. But even from the minimum distance where it's able to focus, I think it comes out very well in terms of the level of detail and the textures and the color. Possibly if you apply a 2x digital zoom, you can get a better result, much more uniform and with better definition. But since the ultra-wide camera is able to focus on such tiny objects, in super macro mode it also allows you to do 2x digital zoom. So you can really extract the details of very tiny objects very well. I think macro photography will be a plus point on this device. Finally, let's look at portraits because the quality seems very good to me. Notice how in this case it is able to keep the objects in focus, giving a very natural result. The edge detection also has good accuracy, although the colors again look slightly more saturated than we would like. But even in this picture where we see a backlit condition, both highlights and shadows come out correctly balanced. The device also lets us take portraits with 2x digital zoom that maintains good quality for a telephoto lens perspective. Even at night, it also manages to take good quality portraits, so I think this will also be one of its positive points. In video recording, the good news is that you can record in 4K both with the main camera and with the ultra-wide camera. The only detail is that if you want to record at 60 frames per second, you will have to do it in full HD, and only the main camera supports this frame rate per second. This can be improved because most action scenes are much more attractive with an ultra-wide lens at 60 frames per second, but here you can't do it. For video recording, we will also find artificial intelligence as well as the filters we saw for photographs. Only that when using these filters, the resolution will be downgraded to full HD. When recording, you can tap on the screen to adjust the exposure or focus. You will also notice that it does allow you to switch between the different lenses and has a convenient slider to adjust the zoom. It also has an option to take pictures while you are recording, as well as pause and resume recording. And something I had not seen so far in Honor devices is that they already allow you to rotate the front camera without the need to stop your video recording. And as you're seeing, they also let you dynamically turn on the flashlight. They even allow you to enable a noise reduction mode, so it brings very interesting options that really make the experience of recording video with this cell phone very attractive. The only detail is that you have a limit of 15 minutes recording video in 4K, so you have to stop recording and start it again after this time. And I forgot to mention that on the front camera there is also the possibility of recording video in 4K, which is very good. In fact, if you are more advanced, note that in the professional mode we also have the video recording mode. And while we are recording, we can move each of these parameters to have a very specific experience about the result you want to get. And this device, like the Honor 70, has a cut-only mode, which as you'll notice allows you to select one person to record in portrait format. So you're recording the video both horizontally and vertically at the same time. And this for content creators looks like a very useful tool. Plus it now allows you to stop recording independently and then continue recording horizontally. So notice how without the need to move the camera, I have two different videos. One in vertical, which is specifically adjusting the position, and one in horizontal, which is the full video. It also has a multi-video mode, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and a story mode where there are templates so you can easily create some videos without the need for too much editing knowledge. So also for content creators, this kind of options could be useful. Video recording is something vital nowadays, and I think this device delivers very well by offering video quality and good color accuracy. Very similar to what we saw in photographs, perhaps a little more saturated than natural, but overall I think the result is very good. Without seeing aggressive changes in white balance nor exposure, and maintaining a good bit rate per second. Even in the focus, you will also notice a very good quality, as it adjusts very fast in fast movements. And it can also adjust very precisely in much more subtle movements. So video recording, I think, does become one of its strong points. If you're one of those who like very fast focus, I think you're going to love this device. The ultra-wide camera captures slightly paler colors compared to the main camera. Perhaps the motion is not as smooth as we would like, plus there is a bit more noise presence even in these kinds of higher lighting conditions. So, the video zoom is not remarkable, and I insist that the ultra-wide camera is going to have a lower saturation of the colors, so I feel that they are more natural and accurate. But when zooming in and out, you do feel a bit aggressive jumps. Indoors, the camera manages to capture colors very well, very similar to what we saw in photography. It also handles noise well and maintains very good stabilization, so at no point does it ever feel like it's going at low frames. In fact, it's still a 30 frames per second video. When we switch to the ultra-wide lens, we're definitely going to notice that there's more noise present, especially when there is more movement in the scene. So, this lens may suffer more in low light conditions compared to what the prime lens offers. In backlit conditions, it gives full preference to illuminating the face, so if there is a brightly lit area in the background, it could burn out the entire area. Fortunately though, it doesn't jump too aggressively in the exposure. But the good news is that it also has an HDR recording mode with which it makes a practically perfect balance of lights and shadows. Honestly, that at this price we could be in front of the best device to record in this kind of complicated conditions. And that is something very worthy of being highlighted because it is one of the most difficult features, where generally most devices fail. But this device gets it right and in a very good way, balancing the lights well and keeping the colors well. At night, the main camera will also have a good light input, although at the moment of having more movement, it could lose a little more definition. But the truth is that it has an excellent performance. On the other hand, the ultra-wide camera in this case is confirmed to suffer too much in scenarios where there is not much illumination, especially if there is too much movement. I think the difference is abysmal between the ultra-wide camera and the main camera in this type of scenario. And the stabilization is pretty good even in 4K, so when you're walking around you're not going to feel very aggressive movement, and even when running I think it manages to balance the movements very well, although for this type of scenes with much more action we would like a special mode with a higher level of stabilization, but honestly it is very good. And curiously, it does include a portrait recording mode in full HD to blur the background and apply a bokeh effect. If there is not much movement in the scene, I think the result will be very good because even the hands manage to focus well, and when it stops detecting a face, it also keeps the same effect, only that it does not change its intensity based on the distance from the person, which would make it much more natural. And another thing we can notice is that it maintains a good stabilization but does not keep the objects in focus. So it is not so natural, but honestly it is one of the best results in this range in a similar way, since it even allows us to record with digital zoom 2x. Although it does lose a considerable level of detail, but again we have a good edge detection. And even if it does not detect the face completely, or if there are movements, it still has a very good quality. So I think it is a mode that you could take advantage of to try to simulate a more professional effect in your video recording. The device also has full HD slow motion at 120 frames per second, giving you excellent quality. And in HD, which is a lower resolution, it can go even slower up to 240 frames per second, which I think is to be expected in this range. And the fast camera is going to go with an automatic setting and only in full HD, so it doesn't offer us great settings. We would really like a manual setting and support for 4K. So we conclude that the fast camera of this device is very basic. The front camera of this device seems to me that it does have a good quality, especially because it is able to record in 4K with stabilization, something that in this price range very few devices will allow you to do. And this looks ideal for content creators, so even if you record the content with the main camera or with the front camera, you will maintain a very similar quality. The device has two levels of amplitude, and where we could ask for an improvement would be in the treatment of backlit images. Since in the main camera it was spectacular, but here in the front camera it could still improve. Although honestly it does make a good balance compared to other devices. Another thing we could ask for would be autofocus, since in this case it is not able to adjust its focus to objects a little closer. But the truth is that we usually only demand that from flagship devices, so I like the result we have here. Indoors, we are also going to have a good capture of colors, although you do get to notice a little noise or noise reduction, especially when there is more movement. If the video is a little more static, I think it manages to reduce noise significantly. But the more movement there is in the video, the more you will notice this noise that is gradually reduced. In fact, at night, you will notice this noise level a bit higher. Although the truth is that I was recording in a considerably dark environment. Possibly if at night you have a source of illumination a little closer, you could get a better result. But it's definitely not going to stand out too much in this regard. The good news is that you can turn on the screen to illuminate your face in a better way. And you can even do this automatically. That helps you better capture your face and colors, and you can do it without having to stop your video recording. The front camera also includes a fast camera system, although in this case only in HD. It is a very low resolution for full 2023, especially considering that in automatic mode you can record in HD. For me, it is inexplicable that the fast camera is downgraded to HD. And finally, in the case of the front camera, we will not find slow motion. What we will find is a dual recording mode. So we have both picture-in-picture mode and split screen mode, to show both sides of the video. In fact, curiously, the resolution is more or less full HD but with a little more width. The frame, you can move it across the entire screen, and you can also switch to the main camera and the ultra-wide camera without cutting the video. So you can make several changes to adjust to the angle you like best, and it also allows you to zoom while in this kind of dual modes, keeping autofocus enabled as well, so I think it gives you a very good experience. Because it gives you very good features, keeping also a good resolution, unlike other devices that when recording with these modes, it goes down to a much lower resolution. I think that again for content creators this can be a very useful tool. In addition to the solo cut tool I showed you a moment ago, the device arrives with Android Trice and Magic OS 7.1, so it has good up-to-date software. Although the bad news is that it only has 2 years of guaranteed software updates and 3 years of security patches. And considering Android 14 was introduced earlier this year, it's likely to only make it to Android 15, and that takes a little bit of life out of it. Honor also integrates some added options through its software. For example, we have always on display so that the screen continues to display information, even if we have locked our device, as different clock faces or some notifications. Also by default, brings enabled some gestures that you can perform with your knuckles. So you can give 2 taps with 1 knuckle to take a screenshot, or 2 taps with 2 knuckles to make a screen recording. Also with 1 knuckle you could draw some figure to make a more specific cutout on your screen, and through the editor you could perfect this shape. This device also has a smart sidebar which allows us to open some applications quickly in a floating format. We can edit each of the shortcuts that appear on this screen, and the good news is that both YouTube and Instagram, if they are supported in this floating window mode, that's uncommon on most devices, and that's why this addition stands out. Only it doesn't let you open 2 apps at the same time in this format. Rather, it can only be 1 at a time. The others will be minimized in a bubble, and the good news is that you can resize these windows and reposition them where you want. In the gallery has also been added the magic text function, with which you can select text directly from photos to copy and paste it to another place. Also, if you take pictures with the motion photo effect enabled, you could get to create GIFs. Since the pictures also capture a little video, then in more options you can select save as GIF meme, and you can select which part you want to save, like this animated GIF. In the gallery we will find the create section, where we can create instant movies with artificial intelligence, selecting some of the videos, and automatically it will analyze and adjust the contents, so you do not have to edit much, and you already have a generated video. It also allows you to cut the videos directly with this little editor, create a collage, create stories, and some other things. Finally, it has the Yo-Yo Suggestions, which is a widget that will give you quick suggestions of the applications that you usually use at this time of the day. So the icons that appear in this widget, they will vary throughout the day, based on your usage habits. This operating system is considerably stable, still with a lot of Huawei heritage, although remember that in this case it has no drawbacks, with Google services. However, I think it still has a long way to go to continue to refine its features. The fingerprint reader is inside the display, and it is optical, so you need to leave for some light time the D-Edo on top so that the recognition can be performed. It supports up to 5 different registrations, and it seems to me that its operation is correct. The fact that it's an on-screen reader, it also allows you to customize the unlock animation so you can choose your favorite. There is a good variety with different styles and colors. In addition to this, it has facial recognition, which is only in 2 dimensions, so the device itself gives you the warning that people similar to you, they could get to unlock this device. Therefore, it is not so advisable to use facial unlocking if your priority is security. And for a comfortable experience, you could use Google's Smart Unlock, where it allows you to add trusted places and devices so that while you are in those environments, the device doesn't lock your screen. One thing I liked about this device is that it comes with a password manager from Honor, that if has cloud sync with other Honor devices. So you can automatically fill in these fields by putting your fingerprint, and just like that, you're done. Although this password manager comes turned off by default, then you must enter this section in order to turn it on and start using it. Inside the file manager, we will also find a safe, which we can protect with our fingerprint, our face, or a code different from the lock screen, to be able to safeguard here all kinds of files. On the other hand, you can also select which applications should request again your code or your fingerprint to be able to access them. This gives you new levels of privacy. There are also other tools to prevent attacks, like blocking fake mobile towers and prevent someone from trying to steal your information. But if you ever lose your device, you are completely dependent on Google, since Honor doesn't yet have a feature to help you find your cell phone. So I think here Honor could still improve. The battery is 5000 milliamps. And like all Honor devices, it has an excellent management of applications in the background. That's why it manages to extend a lot its battery time in my testing. According to my test, it could give you more or less 7.5 hours of intense use. So the truth is very good in this regard. It does not have a power saving mode. Very aggressive. It just has this basic mode. And in this sense, I think the experience could be improved if in some emergency it is necessary to save battery. Since other devices, if they allow you to restrict many more things. But if the battery is good, the load is also good. Since it supports Honor Supercharge of 66 watts, it does not support power delivery, so that has to be considered if you are going to use other chargers. But the ideal will be to use your original charger, because with 15 minutes, in my test I get 42% power back. In 30 minutes I recovered 70%, and it finished charging in 49 minutes. So it's really a very good charger. And in the settings you can also have smart charging, in case you are one of those users that leaves your cell phone charging all night so that it doesn't get damaged. With this feature, you can go charging slowly. It also has intelligent battery capacity. That what it will do is to prevent the battery. It is used at its maximum capacity to prevent it from deteriorating so fast. So even with this option enabled, the device has very good battery life. So there's no question that in battery. And in charging, it's a device that performs excellent. In connectivity, the device also comes very well, as it supports 5G networks, and in the dual SIM model, it also allows you to add an eSIM, which is very positive in this price range. Especially, it will be very useful if you usually travel, because then you can add data plans simply by scanning QR codes. So the features are very good, and the connectivity as well. And through the System Manager application, you can also select which applications will have access to the network with your mobile data, and which applications can do it, only with Wi-Fi, so you can easily avoid bad surprises in your mobile data consumption. And in addition to the 5G, it also has access to Wi-Fi 6, so it can give you high download speeds if you have any compatible router. In this case, for some reason, it doesn't come through as fast, as I have seen with other devices. Testing them on my same network, I don't know if it's because my network just at this moment, it's not that fast or why. But well, it also integrates NFC to be able to make mobile payments or link you to other devices touching the back of this cell phone. And it features wireless screen projection, compatible with multiple devices, although it doesn't have desktop mode or anything like that, as if we find it in the Magic 5 Pro. If you can connect it to the screen of your car, both wired and wirelessly, thanks to Android Auto. But the bad news comes in the sensors, because although it does have a good variety, you'll notice that the proximity sensor is virtual, so it's not easily enabled, and this can cause some uncomfortable details in its use. If I place it close to my ear, it does enable, but it doesn't enable so easily with my hand anything else. Lastly, you will notice that it's vibration motor. It's on the Z-axis, so it's very simple. And in this range, there are already several devices that offer you more advanced vibration motors. The Honor ecosystem is extremely advanced since it has a very good variety of devices. For example, you have the Honor Magic Book, like their laptops. You'll also find the Honor Band 7 and Honor Band 6, in addition to the Honor Watch, with various formats and different ranges. And the Honor Earbuds. So yes, you can get to have a very good experience among several devices of this same brand, since it also has its own Honor Share technology to share files quickly between devices of this same manufacturer. But being an Android device, it also has technologies such as Nearby Share to quickly send documents or photos to other Android devices. And even if your computer is not Honor, it brings integrated connection to Windows, although this could also be installed on other phones, but it is appreciated that here it already comes pre-installed for faster setup. So in ecosystem, it feels like Honor does have a good backing. It already feels like a mature brand, although it would still have some things to improve since, for example, cloud storage depends on Google Drive since it doesn't offer some cloud from Honor. And the control of the internet devices, of things, it will be through Google Home, which by the way does not come pre-installed. So in this case, they do not give it much prominence. Although Honor also has Honor Connect, which will allow you in the future install devices with ease. But it still feels like it's at a stage, very early stage. Let's go to the application opening test. You're looking at this test with an accelerated speed, and that's how accelerated. That's the edition that you have of your processor because it's the Snapdragon Accelerated Edition. It also has variants of 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 or 512 gigabytes of storage. No possibility of storage expansion through micro SD cards, which I think for this price, it's considerably well. Plus, the RAM is very well managed. I think Honor is one of those manufacturers that usually manage the RAM in a perfect way. And if you already have very good physical RAM, I believe that in this case we are going to have an excellent experience in opening multiple applications and the exchange between each of them. I honestly do not see that the device is slow. I think this is one of its strengths. The only detail that I did notice is that the modem of this processor, it seems to be a little slower. It doesn't have as much speed in downloading, and that can cause applications, they could be delayed a little more at the moment of opening. But the truth is, it's nothing really serious. It achieved a very good time. That in this price range, it is positioned quite well. Plus the fact that it has 256 gigabytes of storage in its base edition makes it an extremely good experience. In this case, I am testing the edition with a lot of free space still, and that I have several games installed and several videos also here. Now let's test. How long does it take to export 4 clips recorded on 4K splices, all recorded with this device? With a total duration of 1 minute, it takes practically 1 minute, and that's not good in this price range. Probably if you find some other devices with a little more power to export videos, it seems that this processor is still not very well optimized. For games, we will find a new wizard with a sidebar that allows us to take a look. CPU consumption, RAM consumption, and frames per second. Although honestly, that number, I feel it is not very accurate. It also lets us take a look at the time, the battery and other things. And we also have different game modes to have a balanced setting. If we don't want to consume so much battery, or we have the game setting, which will give more power to the processor, we can also quickly enable the Do Not Disturb mode. And we can prevent some unwanted touches. We can also change the color representation of the screen, which can become useful in very dark games. And we can take screenshots and record screenshots. In addition, we can quickly open some applications in a floating mode so as not to interrupt our game at the time of answering a notification or a message. In fact, it also includes a control for brightness and in the settings. The truth is that it does not offer too many options. In Call of Duty by default, this device supports very high graphics quality, and it also appears available the maximum frame rate, something that is very nice in this price range, and it also supports with a good amount of effects, thanks to the processor being a Snapdragon, so it stands out too much that you can use all the effects at the same time, and also the super resolution mode and variable speed shading. Unfortunately, it was not possible to monitor in a specific way the behavior of this device. We tried on multiple occasions and we didn't succeed, but we can tell you that if it gives us a good playability, especially highlighting the good graphics compatibility that it has unlike other devices in this price range that could come to integrate MediaTek processors where generally do not appear all graphics options, then we have a good experience in terms of performance, but it should be noted again that it only offers you mono sound. So in this type of content, you can't tell if you are being shot from the left side. In the Legends game, we left the automatic setting to turn it up, we left it on the high quality, at 60 frames per second. The experience in this game was good, but not 100% perfect, for if there were some moments where you felt a decrease in the frequency of frames per second, so it lost fluidity, especially in moments of too much action. The advantage is that if it shows us a good graphic quality. But another disadvantage is that the screen recording, it is not even in HD, and therefore if you wanted to use this device to record gameplays, well, the experience ends up being inferior to what other devices can offer you. In the game of SpongeBob, this device by default already has the high resolution and also the quality on that setting. And for testing, we left it at this setting, but the absence of image smoothing stands out. With this setting again, we see a good performance, although we don't have the certainty of how many frames it was going. A pure calculation, we could say, from moments to 60 frames per second. However, the experience was quite good. The only detail in these games, it was that the temperature in several of these contents that we executed, it was too high. So it stands out that it is a device that if could present a significant heating, this despite the fact that it has a steam chamber, quite large, to try to cool all the heat. But it seems that this processor, it has this type of details that generate a lot of heating. In Genshin Impact by default, it loads the graphics in low quality. For the test, we uploaded it to a high quality, up to 60 frames per second, although the motion blur, we set it to low to get a proper test for its price. The experience again, it was very similar to what we had seen in other games. That is to say, the execution was good, although it wasn't completely free of hiccups. There were some moments where you did feel a slowdown in performance, but it was not for long periods of time, just very specific moments. So we have a good experience. In fact, at the time of recording the screen, the performance dropped slightly. But anyway, the experience is still good. What if you have to consider again? Is that if you like to play this type of content for prolonged times with very long games, definitely that the heating, you can get to bother you in an important way. For the moment, we have come to the end of this video review. I hope you liked it. If so, you know you can indicate it.